guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a different sort of video than I've done here on my channel before, but as you guys can probably tell by the title, it's another how-to video, but this time it's a how-to blend eyeshadows video. I'm going to do it a bit differently, and I'm just going to grab a whole heap of different clips of me showing you guys how I blend my eyeshadows. I do like to give you guys little tips while I am doing my eyeshadow looks, so yeah, but I'm just going to give you guys like a quick overview of all my tips in this video, and I'm gonna see how this works out. I'm not sure yet. I might actually have to end up doing a whole look and teaching you guys how to do that. But at the moment, this is what we're going to do. Tip number 1. These are all coming off the top of my head, by the way. I did not write any of this down. But tip number 1. Always use an eyeshadow primer. It's nothing to do with blending, I know. But I always use an eye primer. Sometimes I might even just like prime my eyes using concealer. And then I always set that primer with a powder, whether it's a translucent setting powder for your face, or if it's a colour like this one from the Born to Run palette, which is what I used on my eyes today. So those first 2 tips, using a primer and always setting that primer, are my 2 musts, because if you don't have a primer, then your eyeshadows aren't going to be as vibrant, or they're not going to stay as long. And 2, if you don't set that primer, your eyeshadows that you are going to put and blend on top of that aren't going to be as seamless. They're going to be choppy and chalky, and it's just not fun to play with. And sometimes primers can be very tacky, and you don't want to have to do that. So setting a primer, I recommend 100% all the time. Moving on, my 3rd tip is to use a big fluffy blending brush. This is one from Sigma. I also have one here from MAC, which this is the 224. Sigma's is the 340. You can also use the E35 from Sigma. So those are the 3 blending brushes. They all do the exact same thing. What I like to do with the big fluffy blending brush is to go have the base of it right in my crease and just massive circular motions. Not too big, like sometimes you might want that massive like smoky look that comes right about here, but sometimes you just want small. But I always start with a transition shade, whether that is something like Weekender here, or even Still Shot, or even like a light purple shade like the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dusty Rose shade that's in the Soft Glam palette. And that just goes in big circular motions. Usually I will choose a neutral warm tone brown in my crease and just like lightly put it in as like a starting shade, and then I will still use this brush and go back over it with like the purple shade, or like even like a semi darker or semi oranger, not a word, color. I always like to do big circular motions, like, and then tip number 4 is to gradient the color darker, and then, but you can still use the same brush, but this time use it in a different way, like in a back and forth motion, sort of like back and forth like that, but in the crease. Or another thing is also little circle motions, and your circle motions, I don't know how to do this, hang on. Your circle motions are like this, or like that. tiny circles or big circles, but still circles. Then usually I will use 1 or 2 shades using this brush, and then I'll move on to this one. This is the, wow, I think it's the E25 from Sigma. There's also this one from Colourpop, and there's also a MAC one, but I don't have that actually close to me. They're just a more, if you look at it, just a more thinner, denser blending brush. So instead of being very diffused, the eyeshadow will be very precise. It will just sort of be very in that one area. So with this, you can do smaller circle motions, like with the bigger, fluffier blending brush, or you can do big circle motions. You can really do anything with this brush. I usually will do little circle motions or back and forth motions. A back and forth motion will get this product directly in that crease, and then once that's done, then sometimes I'll go back in and do circle motions. And then once that's done, maybe I'll do that one, like I'll use 2 different shades, or sometimes I will just use the one shade or one colour and just put that in the crease. I like my crease to be a very gradient look, sort of like what this is. You've got light up the top, and then you come down and it's darker. So my first, on this eye look, I used Weekender to start off, and then I moved into a darker shade, which is Riff, and then I moved into a colour, so which is Hellride. So I went from this one to this one, and then to this one. Another option would be to go from Weekender to Still Shot to this orange shade, which is Baja. You could even go from Weekender to Riff to Good As Gone, or even Punk down here. I like to use matte shades in my crease, so they're always matte shades I just use in my crease, unless it's with the dense blending brush, and then sometimes I'll put a shimmer on that. But you can barely see it, and sometimes it will, if there's shimmer that I use on my eyelids, then I'll use that same sort of colour in the crease. Well, all I do for the crease, to start with anyway, and then I move on to the eyelid, and I start from like the inner corner and work my way out, depending on what colours I feel like using. If I do something with my finger, I will pat it on the eyelid. I just pat the purple shade on the first half, and then the other colour on the outer half, and then I went back in with the purple shade and just went over the crease. That way it was more of a gradient, more blended, more seamless sort of look. Once your eyelid colour is done, all nice and blended and seamlessly and nice, then I go on to I go back into my crease. Usually I'll go back in with the dense blending brush with the same colour I used on it to start with, and I would just go in circular motions or even back and forth motions, depending if I want more of a smoky look. Because I always like to go back in to the crease after the eyes, because you don't know what sort of, well, I never know what sort of eye look on the eyelids I want. And if you want it to be more of a smoky look, or if it needs to be a more smoky look, like needs to be. So yeah, and then once that's done, depending if it's like back and forth or circular motions, I'll then go back in with the more larger fluffy blending brush, no matter what, really. And then once that's done, then I'll move on to my lower lash line. Okay, and then my lower lash liner, I always place an eye colour on the lower lash line with a pencil brush. It just seems to always be that's the way I go. And then if I feel like it needs a more blended look, I will grab my dense blending brush, again like I did today, and just blend that out. With today's eyes, the lower lash line looked a bit more blue, like in the contrast between the top and the bottom. And so then I just blended in a little bit of purple on my lower lash line. I then probably after the lower lash line, I'll then go back into the crease if it needs it. Even sometimes I'll go in with like a clean blending brush like this and just blend out anything that needs to be blended out. Sometimes they don't need to be blended out. But yeah, and then I'll put mascara on. Another tip I have that's like a general tip. Always tap off your brushes. If you're going to use this brush for highlighting, this was what I use for highlighting, and go into the Mary Luminizer highlighter, this is a good one to show. You tap it, you see all that product on that? That's what from tapping. Like from just tapping the brush in the pan. And then if you tap it off, you get like this whole dust. You probably can't see that. But then you just add it to the inner corner. I always tap off on my first go around, no matter what. So always tap off any excess product on your first go in. And then if you think that you need more pigment, then tap off a little bit less than you did before. And then if you still need more pigment, then just tap in the product very slightly and then you'll be fine. This I would use a lot with the crease shades. So what you do is you dip the brush into the pan and then tap off any excess and then apply it in the crease. If it's not showing up the intensity you want, then dip it back in the pan, tap off maybe a little bit or even not tap off at all, and just apply it very lightly back into the crease. Don't ever press too hard. I'm in the crease, that is, because if you end up having too much product on your brush and then you press really hard on your eye when you're applying it, you're not going to get a very nice seamless eye look. It's going to be all muddy, all over the place, and that's just not what you want. I think that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel because it means so much to me when you guys do. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks guys.